interaction on green buildings for Indian cities. To cope with current challenges, green building and green building solutions can go a long way in improving the environmental quality of the built environment. So take care of the health and well-being of its occupants. Invigorating a healthy lifestyle and staying strong and immune. He said that the implementation of green buildings needs to be witnessed across different segments with a varied purchasing prowess. We also need to pay heed to innovations in this domain and ensure that we as Indians innovate as well. Also, because Indian building and construction practices have been green even before the term was invented. On this note, we have come together to witness an engaging interactive session on green buildings for Indian cities. Ladies and gentlemen, the distinguished speakers for today's interaction are Sunil Patil, Principal Architect, Sunil Patil and Associates. Ms. Mala Singh, Chairperson and Managing Director, PEC Greening India. Yatin Pandya, Practicing Architect, Footprints Earth. Architect Nilesh Gandhi, the Principal Architect of Meta Design Architects. So delegates, get ready to witness an engaging session on green buildings for Indian cities.
Green buildings not only help in resource efficiency, that is water, energy, waste minimization, but it also helps in improving health and well-being of the people. A green building itself defines 5 elements of Mother Earth, that is the Panchtatva: earth, water, fire, air, and the sky. Green building is a living or office space which generates less waste, optimizes energy efficiency, conserves water, provides adequate daylight and ventilation to maintain health and well-being of the people, and increases the overall productivity. To begin the discussion, I would like to ask my first question for Ms. Mala Singh would be, Ms. Mala Singh, how has the pandemic elevated the need for us to consider green buildings more seriously?
Yes, Vikasji, I would say, very important question. As I said in my presentation, that pandemic and this climate change and global warming, they are interlinked with each other. Because finally, when we have a lifestyle which is more green and sustainable, where our health and well-being is also important. So definitely, there is a correlation always between pandemic and green building. If we build more green, we live in the green homes, because green building has a very special principle, which is it propagates, better indoor environmental quality and as well as external environmental quality also. Because 90% of our life, I would say, we spend in the indoor spaces. If I'm living in my home or working from home, whatever, I'm still at home inside. I'm not outside. If I'm working in office, I'm again inside office. So either it may be a centralized AC system or it may be a split unit, or very less you will find that operable windows are there. So the kind of air quality I'm breathing, that's very important, whether sufficient fresh air is there or not. Not only fresh air, but the quality of air. That is very, very important. So this is what I said, because it is correlation with the COVID-19, because your filtration system of your AHU, air handling unit, which is a very, very significant role in the green environmental quality. And let me tell you, the good part is that, which I have they are opening and coming up with a lot of patents where, or other aspects of air, but also taking care of the bacterial and as well as the COVID-19. Advanced technologies are, taking care of that stuff also. Because we have heard only HEPA filter, MERV 13 or MERV 8, but there are technologies now which I know coming, and I'm also going to propagate very soon. And those technologies are also going to help in green buildings.
Regarding the correlation that exists between green buildings and the existence of us as human beings.
But here, Vikasji, because I will not neglect one issue, because my previous speakers, because they have talked about sustainable landscape. So definitely, indoor plants. I forgot that, because that's a very, very important component in the green building. And that's a very natural way of doing the things, because it is not mechanical. It's a very natural. So if you have the opportunity to have some, 5 or 6 plants are there. I think Yatin sir knows, Nilesh ji knows very well. So they provide you very, very good oxygen level in the house also. I think money plant is there, snake plant, aloe vera. So there are plants. So greenery plays a very important role, no doubt about that. But where it is not possible, we need to think practically also. There, where mechanical systems are there, then technology needs to be retrofitted or replaced after COVID-19. This is what I feel.
Indoor plants do play an important role in creating an aura of what we can say a better air quality and a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Now moving on, Mr. Sunil, you have pointed out, how vernacular architecture is very prominent even in the modern day practice. So I just wanted to know from you, in modern day construction and building practices, what kind of innovations have been attained to ensure that the ecosystem is both green and sustainable?
So, see, I talked about, reinventing the vernacular ethos. What I meant to say is, whatever we were doing before globalization, were quite sustainable, using vernacular materials, vernacular techniques, and buildings which were adhering to that climate. So what I mean here is, you're talking about innovation. Of course, you can do a lot of innovations in the same ethos, but we need to look at it, as architecture of that place, which has to be today, climate responsive architecture. So my main point was that innovation does not mean it just copies styles from the countries which has a different climate. Like today in India, if you talk about IT buildings, the moment people start visualizing IT buildings, they start visualizing glass blocks and curtain walling, which is not apt for our climate. So you can innovate using the keeping the same ethos which are appropriate for our climate. That's what I wanted to say. And this pandemic, I just missed out in my speech. This pandemic has through this pandemic, the earth has warned us that if we don't correct ourselves, it will start correcting itself. And you have seen that during this pandemic, most of the water bodies were clean, pollution free. The air quality has improved because because of lockdown, there were no vehicles on the street. So I think innovation has to be again to that particular or of our own. It should not be copied from the.
Quite rightly said, Mr. Sunil. Innovation has to be in-house and it has to take into account the local climate and conditions of the site in question. Now, my next question would be for Mr. Yatin Pandya. Mr. Pandya, you have been a good tutor and a mentor to so many people, and you have made a wonderful presentation on earlier as well. So now I wanted to know, currently, sir, does our education system do enough to propagate the ancient wisdom of green and sustainable construction methods in architecture and design in its current curriculum?
See, like a government document, there's always something somewhere that you can't challenge that it wasn't there, but I think it needs to be made a little more explicit. Let me tell you, I think in the curriculum from ever, there was never an escape for a ventilated toilet or a corridor with light and view. But I think with the gadgetry, we have tried to take liberties to see that, okay, it doesn't matter. It can be ventilated with an exhaust, or it can be kind of, done with the lighting, etc. So I think we need to first instill the values that these are unescapable kind of principles that cannot be flouted. Because of the gadgetry, because of those other things, we begin to take undue liberties. So I think education has to first instill the values that what is fundamental and you can not flout that. When I studied, I'm sure there were certain set of professors who would only critique on no ventilation in a toilet or so and so room being locked and out of the natural light, ventilation, view, etc. So that's one. Secondly, we need to make it little more interpretative. Like when we say that architecture of yesteryears, we need to understand the principles that they applied. So we may not copy them stylistically, materially, but I think the principles, if we understand that what was the primary role of that way of doing things, then I think even with the other set of material, we would be able to do so. So I think that critical thinking and therefore understanding what has come to us in that perspective, whether it is about, because when I say sustainability, it's not only from the resource management point of view, but often what we best learn from yesteryear's architecture, that even today, if they are able to inspire us, what are those lessons or principles that we learn, and how can we create today's architecture that would last for as many centuries after. So right from there, those principles and the kind of mechanisms, or in terms of space making, so fundamentally understand them from the point of view of culture, climate, and construction. So if we see them as a holistic system, then we would know that it is not the circular hut with concrete that you can turn the bungas into this, but that every aspect of it has a role to contribute. So I think learning them little more holistically. Right now, probably things come in a little piecemeal manner. And the final thing is that I remember in my own studio, because of my certain approach, whole class was taken to some rural sanitation alternative institute, like in Gandhi Ashram. So right now, I think in the name of being up to date, we are only looking at some new set of things that are coming in instead of the one that. So I think the whole range needs to be exposed, and let architect or the new sort of professionals take their own decision about what is right where. So I think little bit of that exposure onto the resources that we have, not because from India we say Mera Bharat Mahan, but the kind of diversity that we have. So people would also operate in different areas. Whenever we have to do work, we try and look at the vernacular architecture to understand their responses, because those forces have happened over time and they have resolved it also over time. So we get some lessons and clues right from there. So I think picking up some of these, even through the kind of related study program that they have, etc. Often schools go to some modern examples. So similarly, I think we should be also looking at some of these to investigate why and how they work, so we can understand the fundamentals of that. Some Louis Kahn Trophy documentation portfolio, it as a part of NASA activity, where students were asked to document that heritage, and hopefully in that process understand the meaning and the efficacy of some of these aspects and dimensions. So I think some of these need to continue, and therefore onus should be on regional schools, that each school should become a resource center of that regional wisdom or the kind of information system and knowledge system, so that we can capture this diversity, as diverse as India what we have. So it's not one center of excellence, but I think every school has to be a repository of this traditional knowledge from their own region, and therefore they can customize this course to suit to that particular context which they operate from. So we know so much about Zaha Hadid and Corbusier, but do we know adequately enough about our own city core, whatever built form, or the kind of as many of the architectural landmarks that they are, or social institutes that they are likewise. So while the other one is seemingly important, I think we should not forget that whatever comes in our own immediate vicinity is also a responsibility to document, understand, and then create the interpretations out of.
I think that's quite rightly pointed out. The regional aspects and the regional knowledge needs to be cultivated, and it needs to be used very effectively. Mr. Sunil, just wanted to have a quick opinion. Like when it comes to, we're talking about the architectural education in India. Do you think the Vastu courses which were started in the IITs recently, do you think it's a step in the right direction?
Now see, you have to understand one thing, that the Constitution of India says that we should believe in science, we should have scientific attitude. So Vastu, how you look at Vastu, I don't know, but these days what they practice in Vastu is more of superstition than climatology. Vastu, original Vastu was basically to implement more of climatology. But I don't think that's the right step of doing it, because Vastu is not approved by science. It's not a science. It's a Shraddha, I would say. So I'm against that.
No, if I can just add,
yes, please.
As I said, when we did this, when that project didn't come through, but when we were asked to do something in Shimla, we had tried to look at one of the couple of villages nearby. And why I mentioned that is that they were core Hindu with all kinds of whatever traditional principles, very imbibed. But if you see, Suli was the village I'm talking about, their houses being close to Himalayas and northeast being cold, they had an L-shaped unit, but largely facing to south and west, because north and east was covered up with the haystock so that they get protection from the cold wind. So what happens is that whether it's IGBC or whether it's Vastu, when you use it as a set of fixed guideline, then for the diverse climate, you might miss out. So adaptation, so knowing the principle that essentially you have to have comfort, and in a colder place, warmth is the need, is a kind of way to go about. So I think, like you said, get to the basic elements of wind, water, and vegetation, and land and sun, and you get the right solution, whether it's Feng Shui, Vastu, but that is scientific, that is logical. If you have building in southwest and Angan in northeast, you get in a hot climate good shadows so that you can also use Angan. And in the southwest, you have bedroom, northeast your living room. You can daytime protect your living room by the buffer of the nighttime use, but at nighttime with southwest breeze, it will cool off faster. So there is logic. But if I change the climate base, do the same Vastu Shastris advise me in North America, the same other guideline, opposite guideline? No. There they would still hold by North being right, and etc., etc. So I think we have to take it more as a basic scientific principle, what it leads to, and address those 5 elements, and you are already Vastu compliant, and more than that, environment compliant.
But isn't it part of our syllabus already, the climatology?
It is. That's what I'm saying, that we never had to even say green as something special. We don't have to wear a feather or a crown by saying I'm green. Okay, it was absolutely logical. Therefore, people say that whether it's relevant then and now, there's nothing then and now about being relevant and contextually appropriate. Post-pandemic, post-industrialization, post anything, I think it's always to be the first logical thing to do. And as I say, there's nothing good or bad or ugly. It's always appropriate or inappropriate, and appropriate to place, people, program, and your philosophy. Okay. And like I said, as professional, we have to think like a doctor. Doctor knows many illnesses, many cure, but what is relevant to that patient, his history, and he's trying to give there. So first is diagnosis. You go to a doctor for a diagnosis. Once you know you have malaria, even a child knows to take chloroquine or something equivalent. But the fever is only for because of malaria or something else. And even right now in pandemic, he doesn't say that just take remdesivir. He says that you could even have malaria just now that monsoon has come in. So I think like that, as a professional, we have to know what is appropriate. So there's no comparison of it being good, bad, ugly. It's just right and relevant.
Absolutely, Mr. Yatin, I completely, appreciate for that, your point of view. It is completely relevant. And I remember that somewhere I read a comment on, our scientific advancements, that we still, are tribal in nature, but highly scientifically advanced. And it coexists because the way our beliefs also coexist along with that. And it also required a long, amount of duration of time for us to discuss. It is very debatable subject even. So thank you so much, panelists. It was really a privilege to have each one of you here. And I would like to hear from Architect Nilesh. I would like you to do a closing statement for this session.
I think it was a very engaging session today, and we all are stalwarts who of the industry, and we all are sensitive. The only qualification, I think, apart from all our academic tail that we carry behind our name, I think what we are people who are sensitive towards our responsibilities. And I think with the work that we have done over the period, which started off with Sunil ji explaining his excellent projects, and with the way he explained us the projects and how he has invited climate and has integrated spaces, was excellent. Post which it was too good, Malaji, to understand how and case studies are the crux of the matter. We may talk anything and however how much ever we may debate, but the proof lies in the pudding, and it lies in eating the pudding. And that was very good qualitative assessment that you shared with us, understanding how a project can, and that I'm sure that will prove to be a good guide for all the people who have seen it, and how to go about negotiating, how to go about making the existing build form into green. And I think the best was to the second last, wherein Yatinji and we are all mesmerized by your presentation and your thought process, and the way it was really encouraging to see the lifespan, how it has. And uh, a big thank you to Prasad and Vikas. You have instrumental into bringing us together and making us refurbish things. These are always there, but when we discuss and we talk about it, whatever like goes down a bit, resurfaces, and we ourselves get motivated and encouraged about it. So I think it was a very engaging and excellent session, and I really thank you, Prasad, from the bottom. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Nilesh. Thank you, panelists, for exchanging your valuable thoughts on today's topic, green buildings for Indian cities. Delegates, we hope you have enjoyed it. Before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Sunil Patil, Ms. Mala Singh, Mr. Yatin Pandya, and Mr. Nilesh Gandhi. I would also like to thank my editor, Mr. Prasad Nair, for taking this initiative. We would like our delegates and viewers to stay connected with us on our social media handles. ACE Update is available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Additionally, you can also download our app from the Google Play Store and also for your iOS devices. So with this, we would like to announce the closing of today's session. Request you to stay tuned for more such sessions. Thank you and goodbye.